Shalom, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Raha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, pushing this doctrine of truth to the elect of the nation of Israel, who were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, pursuant to the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. All right, I wanted to do a lesson on this story I came across yesterday about this disgraced former Louisiana mayor here. Is accused of raping a 13-year-old young man, right? So why did I do a story on this? Well, this is more proof that the Edomites do hold privilege, okay? They hold this universal privilege of not being in trouble like other men. Okay, and this is biblical, right? And why is that? Well, the scripture says that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay? And because the earth is given into their hands, they control everything. They control the court system, the judicial system, they control the media, right? They control everything. So they can create laws that don't necessarily apply to them, right? Like it would you Jakes, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, right? And this is a perfect example, especially the Edomite woman, because these individuals never are held accountable for any of the wickedness that they do. There's always excuses being made for these devils, okay? They're never held accountable for anything. Now you see it, right? She's accused of raping, and she had the opportunity to resign. She wasn't fired on the spot. Now, if that were Jake, okay, as a mayor, he would have been fired on the spot, taken to jail, probably given a $5-10 million bail, right, and would have been thrown under the jail, okay? Now, this devil here, she stayed in jail for 77 minutes, they said. She made bail, I want to say it was $75,000, and you know she only paid 10% of that, right? The same day. She was in and out, okay? So we're going to play it, but let's go ahead and get the scripture. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 73, verse 5. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. Okay, and they're not in trouble as other men because they are the wicked and they run the world. They are in control. Okay, so that privilege that everybody wants to deny amongst Edomites, you know, it's there. Okay, it's in full effect. All right, and you're going to hear about it because I believe they interview either a therapist or a psychologist, and as soon as she starts talking, she's making excuses for this woman. I mean, there's absolutely no accountability for these devils, okay? Because they don't take into account when it comes to a Jake doing the same crime, they don't consider a psychological aspect of it, okay? But for them, they always introduce that, especially if it's a high-profile case, you know, as if to say that their behavior is excused, okay? And they're very subtle about it. They try to intellectualize every goddamn thing, you know, so they don't look like perverts or monsters or savages, okay? They always get that get-out-of-jail-free card with, you know, the psychological aspect of it. Oh, you know, she was under trauma. She was coerced. She was forced by a man. You'll hear it. You'll hear it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play it.
From office. Then within days of her resignation, she's booked into jail, accused of raping a minor while she was in office.
It's a very serious crime, and I think that it's important that it be recognized as such.
42-year-old Misty Roberts faces charges of third-degree rape and contributing to the delinquency of juveniles. According to authorities, they began their investigation on July 26, When the Beauregard Parish Sheriff's Office requested the Louisiana State Police Special Victims Unit investigate a complaint against the former mayor. Investigators interviewed 2 juveniles, one of which was the alleged victim. Both would confirm Roberts allegedly had sexual intercourse with the young victim while she was mayor.
It seems to be, oddly enough, that when I look at the people that I've evaluated and we look at some of the high-profile cases, it's not that this is somebody who is, struggling financially, struggling career-wise, unattractive, unmarried. We tend to find people who are the opposite of that when we look at offenders. And so I don't think it's a matter of this person doesn't know better as much as it is a number of other things that are going on for that person.
A warrant for Roberts' arrest was issued, but she would ultimately turn herself into police.
I think whenever we hear about a female who's been accused of some sexual offense, the immediate reaction is surprise, shock. Unfortunately, all too often disbelief. It's something I've certainly seen in my clinical practice back in those days. And in my forensic practice, I've been involved and evaluated a number of women who were accused of sexual abuse. But I think it is something that we tend to view with really, like I said, just being stunned, because that's not who we think about when we think about somebody who is a sexual abuser.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Joni Johnston says she's evaluated numerous women offenders convicted of sex crimes and explains their motivations for committing the heinous offenses vary.
Now, let's stop right here. Now, as I mentioned, she's going to start making excuses for this woman from a psychological standpoint to justify, what she did, okay? Now, she's not coming out and saying it, but by introducing, the potential or possible rationale for doing what she did, like I said, from a psychological standpoint, you're already in your mind creating this image of her being a victim, okay? Because they're going to tell you, the first thing that comes to your mind is a man forced her to do it. Well, that's not the first goddamn thing that comes to my mind. Okay, I don't even consider anything like that. That wouldn't ever come to my mind. And again, this is how women evade accountability. Okay? Because they're always so quick to point the finger at a man, when they at the same time will scream from the mountaintops that they're equal, right? I don't need no man, I'm strong, I'm this, I'm that. Well, if you're all that, how is it possible that you broads allow yourselves to be coerced and encouraged into doing, wickedness? Because what she did was wicked in terms of her being married, okay? She was obviously married. I don't know if she's still with her husband, okay? I saw a picture. They showed a photograph of her and what I assume to be her husband. But even if they're divorced, she's still married to him, according to the scriptures, right? Just because she divorces doesn't mean that they're no longer married, okay? So if she leaves the marriage and she goes and has sex with someone, she's committing adultery. And she did, obviously, in this case. All right, a young 13-year-old young man. All right? But anyway, let's listen to the rest of this foolishness.
Relatively diverse group, as it is with male sex offenders. So when you look at female offenders, the most common one that we think about is that, okay, some man must have put her up to this. That's typically what people tend to think. And in reality,
that's not what people tend to think. This is what the shameless, disgusting, hot-to-trot whores think about, okay? And if a woman thinks that way, it's because deep down, she's wanting the same thing, or she's done the same thing. Okay, that's not what the average person thinks of when they hear about, these degenerates, okay, these Edomites, okay, that think the laws don't apply to themselves, okay, and they're always quick to enforce the law with you jakes, but it never applies to them. Case in point, all right? You mean to tell me she couldn't find a rod somewhere, with a young guy who's in his 20s or 18, 19-year-old? Of course she could. All right? But she wanted to test the limits, okay? In terms of finding the youngest possible male that she could find, victim, because according to American culture, this kid should be considered a victim. I mean, he's a young man, so it's really not a crime per se, according to the scriptures. At any rate,
that's not the case. About a third of women who sexually offend are doing so in collaboration with a male. So either to please the man, to keep the relationship, or as part of a partner dynamics, which means about 2/3 are solo offenders. And of those, we do find kind of a diversity. We have, women who sadly come from a number of generations where incest and sexual abuse has been a part of their upbringing for a number, for generations, and they oftentimes will abuse their own children. And then we look at who's likely to abuse children outside the home. We see a couple of different, types, if you will. One being the one that we're familiar with is what's kind of colloquially called the teacher lover, the person who is in a caretaking or nurturing role, and they somehow convince themselves they fall in love with this person, and in their mind they see it as a consensual relationship. There's a kind of a denial that this is a power imbalance. There's no consent when you have a minor and an adult, particularly when you have a teacher or somebody in a position of power. And then you see, more rarely the person who has poor boundaries. They're doing things, for example, like providing alcohol to their son or their daughter and their friends. They're partying. They almost want to see themselves as part of the group, and then something happens along those lines.
I mean, this is incredible. I mean, you hear the bullshit coming out of this goddamn devil's mouth. You hear the bullshit coming out of her mouth. Just excuse after excuse. She went on a 2-minute tangent, about this woman, the possible psychological scenarios or reasons for her doing what she did. Now, Jake never gets the benefit of the doubt. Jake never gets any type of mercy, right? And no kind of empathy for anything, regardless of how, the Israelite man or woman were brought up, okay? Because oftentimes they will address, okay, listen, this kid was endured a lot of trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma during childhood, and it has absolutely no bearing on the case whatsoever. But if you got the complexion for the protection, then that's always considered, okay? Because you're always going to get bleeding heart Edomites, fellow Edomites, that are going to sympathize with degenerate behavior, okay? No matter what it is, they're always going to sympathize with their own, okay? And as a result, they'll get a slap on the wrist. They may not do as much jail time as a Jake, as an Israelite, right? They'll get counseling. They'll get therapy. All right? I mean, these people are professional fucking victims. All right? And excuse my French, but it really infuriates me, that this still goes on. All right? Because you got a lot of Jakes that have been locked up for lighter crimes, okay? Petty crimes. And they're locked up and the keys thrown away by virtue of the fact of their skin color or their nationality, okay? Which is more proof that these Edomites hate you Jakes, okay? And you can see that reflected in the justice system, the way they administer so-called justice, right? There's always a double standard. They always get a slap on the wrist, whereas you Jakes, you get the book thrown at you and maximum sentences, okay? All right, let's get another scripture, then we'll wrap it up. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 26, verse 10. Let favor be showed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly, and will not behold the majesty of the Lord. Right. Favor is showed to the wicked, okay, in the form of that blessing. Job chapter 9, verse 24. Yet will he not learn righteousness. Okay, they've been given the world, but they still can't seem to learn or understand the concept of being righteous, right? Do as I say, not as I do. That's their mindset. In the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly. And the land of uprightness is Israel. Okay? The homeland, the fatherland, right? Will he deal unjustly? Because they're there, they're occupying it, right? Illegally, of course. And they're still ruling unjustly. They got alphabet parades. They sell shrimp, crab, lobster in the stores, right? They even got kosher pig, I heard. All right? Kosher pork. Go figure. Okay, this is supposed to be the land of uprightness, so there shouldn't be any of that going on there, right? And these people will not behold the majesty of the Lord because they hate the Lord. They hate his laws. They hate everything he represents. But it's okay because the Lord hates you too, Edomites. All right? Let's go back to Psalms chapter 73, verse 5 one more time. They are not in trouble as other men, right? They're not. We see that. She served 77 minutes in jail, right? And got out on $75,000 bond. And I guarantee you 10% of that, she only had to pay 10%, all right, in order to be released. Okay? That's usually how it rolls. If that were an Israelite man, his bond would have probably been about $5 million. $1 million at least. Okay? And then they'd have thrown his ass under the jail. This is how those devils roll, man. Neither are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain. Okay? And it compasses them as a chain because they know that they're above the law. The laws don't apply to them. Okay? They make them, but they don't expect them to apply to themselves. Violence covereth them as a garment. And this is true about the Edomites as well. Why? Because they have the blessing of the sword. Okay? Anyway, I didn't want to make this too long. Lord's will, this was edifying. I want to say all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKadosh. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, pushing this doctrine of truth to the elect of the nation of Israel, who are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, pursuant to the curses of Deuteronomy. Till next time, Shalom.